I'm Leo Sayre. Tonight's programme is all about a living legend of Australian rock and roll. Doc Neeson was, with the Angels, an absolute icon of Australian music. And when I first came to Australia in 1974 and met some of my peers here in Australia, he was one guy who really stood out to me. An amazing musician, an amazing singer, and a character. He's still a character today. Nothing's really changed, except life these days is a little bit more of a struggle, as you can see from this programme.
Doc, at the peak of his career, commanded that stage.
He was selling postcards from a paper stand, a whiskey bottle in his withered hand.
When he was in full flight, he was unstoppable, unique, exciting, terrifying.
Take a long ride.
Doc is an icon of those people who grew up in the 70s and 80s.
Take a long ride.
My impression of Doc Neeson was that he was a rascal, but a very good rascal. A fellow with a heart as big as all our doors.
In 78, 79, the Angels, no question, were the highest paid band in the land. As great musicians as the rest of the band was, there would be no Angels if it wasn't for Doc.
When I first set eyes on him, I didn't want to be there. I was there with some friends who said we had to be there because it was the Angels, and I had no idea who the Angels were. They said, but it's Doc Neeson. I said, who's that? They said, he's like God.
And the Angels kept going longer than a lot of other bands from that era because, for one, they were just so passionate about performing.
Whenever Doc Neeson sang the words of the Angels' classic love song, Am I Ever Going to See Your Face Again?, back came the ingenious response, no way, get fucked, fuck off.
Am I ever gonna see your face again? Am I ever gonna see your face again?
The Australian audiences, in their own inimitable fashion, added their own part to it, which is what I call the chant, or sometimes the response. And it suddenly became international in its own way. It now gets sung in pubs in England. I took a band to the Middle East. They were singing it there.
Am I ever gonna see your face again?
Bishop Bello leant forward and looked around Jose Ramos Horta and said to me, he used to call me Mr. General, and he said, Mr. General, what are they singing? And I said, my Lord Bishop, I really can't quite make it out. And then Ramos Horta looked at me and I could tell that he could make it out.
In a way, I'm really delighted to hear that, because it's Australian audiences making a song their own. And from the point of view of when the band had first started, we were trying to write strong songs for Australian audiences. They've made it their own in a way I never would have thought possible. Sintra?
Hey, come on. Great, lovely to meet you.
Where's Kieran? And so I'm here to get the OAM, Order of Australian Medal, for basically contribution via music mostly. Yeah, I felt a bit kind of humble. You know, I haven't saved any lives. To be in that company is, well, I feel honoured to be in that company.
Are you a fan?
I am, yes. Doc, I'm honoured, really. That's a joy.
Seeing Dad, you know, obviously growing up with him, honestly, I don't think I've ever seen him so happy in his whole life.
And if I may...
Oh, go on.
When he walked down the aisle after getting the reward, he looked like a little boy, you know, that had just been given the bike he wanted for Christmas. Just the smile on his face was something that I'll never forget.
I might say today I'm the luckiest Irishman to be in Australia. That's the miniature, of course, when you're just having soup or something. And then you wear this one if you're having steak.
Timing of the award for Dad was great because he's been going through a pretty rough time over the past 12 months. Christmas 2012 is when we really realised that something was wrong with Dad, something serious. Dad came over like we always do every Christmas for family dinner, and we sat down and he just didn't seem right. You could see in his face and how he was talking.
So they took me to the Royal North Shore Hospital by ambulance, and while I was in there being observed, I actually had a seizure.
A tour was planned, and it was going to be a national tour. And they did some tests, and they found that he had a brain tumour. And then on his birthday, he got the shocking diagnosis that it was the worst type of brain tumour that you can get, and the worst level. And, you know, it was malignant.
It was a shock, of course, because when somebody says you've got a year to 18 months to live, statistically, that's putting a use-by date on me.
My registrar said that there was a Bernard Neeson being diagnosed with a high-grade brain tumour on the ward, and immediately I said, "Well, Doc Neeson?" And she said, "I don't know." I said, "What does he do for a job?" And she says, "Oh, he's an entertainer." And I said, it must be. And the first step of treatment for these, if they are surgically operable, is to remove the tumour. And so he had a craniotomy performed, and the tumour from the right frontal lobe was removed, and he had an excellent removal from the neurosurgeon. And actually he came through that operation pretty well.
It was either cut it out and have the chemo radiation or probably die. And then I told them, well, I've got these plans to go out with my band, the Angels 100%, and they just sort of looked at each other, you know, like, I don't think so.
All right, perfect. Sitting on down and head in the cradle.
Based on the tour schedule, we're advising Doc that it probably would be best not for him to participate in that program, given the tiredness from the treatment that was likely to arise, and that, you know, not only affect his general health, but affect his actual performance on stage. And given that he was facing 6 weeks of radiotherapy with daily chemotherapy tablets, we thought it was in his best interest, especially in regards to the tiredness, that the concert tour be postponed.
And they were quite right. I was exhausted by it, and I was sleeping about 20 hours a day.
There are times where, you know, as a result of some of the medication he's taking, and one of the main symptoms of this kind of brain tumour is that you do get easily confused and forgetful.
I just couldn't have managed a tour at that point. But I guess I still hung on to a shred of hope that I'd get back on the stage at some point. Originally, my first career option was to become a teacher. Certainly never thought of having a career as a musician. While I was in my last year at Teachers College, I got conscripted into the army. And so while I was on my way of perhaps going to Vietnam, out of the blue, I got shunted up to New Guinea to teach the Pacific Island Regiment up there. After conscription, I took advantage of the Commonwealth Government's retraining scheme and went to Flinders Uni to train as a film director. I was invited to join a jug band, which is an acoustic blues band, which was called Moonshine Jug and String Band. And we gradually became quite successful in Adelaide.
Ain't got no socks, ain't got no shoes, only got the Moonshine Jug Band blues.
We started writing songs in the jug band that ended up really suiting an electric band. So we had to form an electric band to play the songs because we realised nobody wanted to hear our songs.
Hello, baby! Yeah, this is the big doctor speaking.
Yeah, Doc's always wanted to be a performer. And I found him a little eccentric, a guy with ideas and a charm, an Irish charm that would floored every girl he ever met, right? Including my wife.
And then with the release of Am I Ever Going to See Your Face Again, we became the Angels.
Am I ever gonna see your face again?
I gave a lot of thought to what made a good frontman, and I used a lot of the ideas that I'd picked up from film school, and it gave the Angels a really different look.
Don't have to wait in line to stand up, stand up.
And I also had this kind of dramatic alter ego or persona or whatever you want to call it, Doc. And Doc could do anything because I gave him permission to do it. You know, I've put myself in some pretty hairy situations at times. It was like watching a singer on a tightrope wire.
He would come along to the 120-degree heat in the venue, dressed in 3 overcoats and bandaged to the hilt, just to say to the crowd, well, you reckon you're hot, check this.
Then he'd remove the jacket and the waistcoat, the tie, the shirt would come out. So by the end of the show, he was dripping wet and a mess.
And they just lapped it up. They just loved it.
This is it, folks. Over the top.
The Face to Face album totally changed the Australian music scene. It was not cringeworthy. It was not a copy of an American or an English thing. All of a sudden, it had its own identity.
To the hottest group in the country at the moment, Angels.
Who lies on sheets of ice? Who pays for paradise? After the rain, after the rain.
We were selling 700,000 copies of our records, which is insane by today's standards.
Who hang you guilty cliques?
We were playing to packed out houses everywhere.
The fan base was amazing. Like they were saying, yeah, something for us now, you know? The mass Australian youth at that time. The average Joe who just wanted to go out and have a good time and someone that they could identify with. And we just hit the nail right on the head with that.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hey, girls.
What are you doing? There were a lot of distractions. There were girls, there was booze, there was drugs. I had some share of that. I would say I, at one point, had a definite problem with alcohol, and I was frequently unfaithful.
Mum and Dad divorced when I was about 4. Dad being away, I feel, probably did have an impact on the marriage. You know, sometimes it'd be months at a time and Mum would be looking after my brother and I.
That to me is the failure in my career, and if you will, the failure in my life.
Tonight is all about Doc and raising funds for his day-to-day living expenses during his treatment. Everyone just started ringing me when they found out the news and said, what can we do to help? Why don't we build together a fundraiser?
Keep rocking, keep rocking.
And the doctors very kindly let him have the night off tonight and the day off from chemo.
When the Angels were big, we reinvested a lot of the money that we made back into the band itself to try and go overseas again. So there was no money salted away somewhere to fall back on. It's pretty lean time at the moment.
He had a terrible car accident in 1999. Truck rear-ended his car and he was incredibly incapacitated for a long time. He was in terrible pain and he got into financial difficulties, terrible financial difficulties, and it was humiliating, you know, for him not to be able to pay bills.
There he is. How are you?
It's a sad thing that we wait till somebody's sick to let them know that we love them. He's done some of the most inspirational gigs that I've ever seen. He's a great guy. He's a wild man, and we're here to celebrate Doc.
Well, he loves a little woman. Someday he'll make his wife. Saving all the overtime for the one love of his life. We gotta get out of this place. It's the last thing we ever do.
I'm here because my mates are here, and the music community's here doing what it does when people get into strife. And I've known Doc for a long time, so I thought if I can make it, I'd try.
It's been 4 months since I've played to a live audience, so it's going to be quite a big night for me. And I've been sick with a brain tumour, and my doctors told me not to come out tonight. But the show goes on!
The Rock for Doc concert was really a wonderful shot in the arm for him. People were patting him on the back and telling him how much they loved him, and the money was really handy for him.
And that, I think, took a big load off Doc from what I saw. The fact that there weren't people pounding his door down trying to get their $25 licence fee for his car or his television or whatever the rubbish was that was hounding him that day.
Dad went to East Timor a few weeks after the car accident to perform for the troops. Dad will perform through pain to do the job.
Doc Neeson's role in that tour of duty concert, which was held in Dili for the troops in late 1999, part of the Interfed operation, was pivotal. Behind that idea, I soon learnt, was one Doc Neeson. He'd conceived of it, then ran around as only Doc can do, and he's got a head of steam, and enthused other people to join the big project.
Doc, we owe you a gong. We found out today you left before you collected it. And we'll get that for you. It's from your time as a sergeant in the Education Corps. He's a chalky.
And the best thing we could find as a public occasion and a venue was a school fete.
To a very good digger.
And in my full general's uniform, and Doc was wearing an Army Band Corps coat, a long red coat, I pinned this medal on his chest and the crowd went wild.
But then things turned bad.
Dad has had problems with depression, especially since the car accident, from not being able to work, not being able to perform, and really wanting to.
And that, unfortunately, started to cause divisions within the band.
My back specialist told me at the time I had to stop immediately. He actually was an Angels fan, so he knew what I did on stage. And he told me, Doc, consider yourself retired as of leaving my rooms today, because you've got such bad back injuries and you'll end up in a wheelchair for the rest of your days if you don't stop now.
I gave up my work, looked after him, and it just went on for years and years and years. It was quite terrible. I've never seen anybody suffer so much.
In the end, he kept going, yeah. And I think Doc was sort of taking painkillers, and I think from what I understand, he had a bit of a problem trying to get those out of his life.
I did see some moments when he could have been in better condition, when he turned up to gigs. Too many pills, too much drinking.
I got busted for a DUI, driving under the influence, and went to court. Lost my licence for a year. It was cause for quite a lot of shame and soul-searching.
He sounded me out as to whether I would give him a reference, which I did. I wanted to point out to the magistrate the contribution that I knew that Doc had made to the troops, hoping that that would balance, the obvious issue of a man who shouldn't have been driving, being caught with, alcohol in his bloodstream.
The papers were portraying Doc as this kind of poor old has-been. The money's gone, the fame's gone. He's just turned into a lonely old drunk.
I guess when Doc looks in the mirror, he sees what we all see. He sees puffy cheeks. He sees the ravages of time. He sees the results of car accidents, of touring, of the endless chatting to nameless faces in audiences.
So the purpose of today's scan is basically to evaluate where he is. So we're looking for any kind of regrowth of the lesion and seeing how his treatment is going and where he's at.
Pretty near 9 months down the track now since I had my tumour removed, and it's good news.
We basically are looking from the top all the way down to the bottom. This is the site that you had your surgery at. Just in
The tumour hasn't come back. Now a new issue seems to have come up on the scan. These small patches of grey which weren't there previously. My oncologist just doesn't know what to make of them yet, so I've had a blood test and we're waiting on the results of that. I think that combined with the new kind of chemo that I'm on, I'm feeling a lot fitter and looking forward to getting back to playing. You say goodbye and I say hello. You're getting this for free.
He still wants to keep on writing and recording. Single's just been released. He's done something called Walking in the Rain. He's using his very deep voice talking rather than singing.
Walking down the street, kicking cans. Unfortunately, a few years ago, there was a big split in the Angels.
It did get nasty. The way that it started to manifest itself was, if one side couldn't own the name, they were going to stop the other side from using it.
No one's shy in this band about saying what they like or what they hate.
Set. Wait for it.
Watching all the implosion of that wasn't a very pretty thing for me to watch. And it was all to do with who owned what name and this and who got what share, just like it does with, unfortunately, most things like that. The music was forgotten. And so that's why up to a few years ago you'd have two sets of Angels running around the country.
I think there were 3 versions at one point that I saw. It's just so silly. I mean, how to destroy a legend in one hit. I mean, come out and do that. That'll take you out of the game. Watch this.
It doesn't matter who you are, we're all trying to get on.
It's not the ending that a group of wide-eyed young musicians looking to the future would have seen the way things have ended. It's untidy, it's disappointing. It's a real shame that it's come to this.
Yes, it's all right, baby.
Did Doc's illness sort of bring everyone back together again? No, not really. Unfortunately, there was too much damage that was done.
Unfortunately, the tumour has come back in a very aggressive way and it's come back quickly. So from a normal scan in October, he's now got quite a large area of relapse in the scan in February. The prognosis for Doc now is very serious. It's likely to continue to increase and start to cause more problems in the next 2 to 3 months. Hopefully it won't. Hopefully with further chemotherapy we'll hold that back in place. But this will be life-threatening progression in the next 3 to 6 months.
Hi.
Hello, matey. Good to see you.
I'm just...
They let you out.
They did let me out at long last.
Well, they're painting a pretty horrible picture. He knows that the outlook is not good, and he's privately very upset about that.
Yeah, what's going on tonight? Well, it's a very special night. There's special friends, family and music, and that's the healing stuff that Doc really needs. He's been in hospital for quite some time now, and to get together with a bit of music, a bit of food, a couple of drinks and some healing force.
Let the midnight special shine a light on me.
He definitely still has his smile, yeah, and he definitely still likes making people smile, and he's still got the same sense of humour. Nothing's changed.
Come to see the governor. Oh, won't you free my mind?
The news is grim, but some people can actually get right through, and that's the way I'm trying to think about things. So I'm looking forward optimistically to the future.
Let the midnight special shine its ever light on
Shine a light on me. Your flashing eyes are a beacon light that guides the jet plane in the night. I just wanna be with you.
I heard, that Doc was quite unwell, and I thought, well, there's a fellow who's given his all to a life of music and a life of variety, but he's a very generous man. And I thought a very great Australian, in a particular way a great Australian, is in trouble. And perhaps if we tell his story, we can bring a smile to his lips and certainly inform a lot of people about things about Doc that they don't know at the moment.
It's not you.